Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new, again welcome, thanks for being here. You old guys, again thank you for your support. If you like what you see, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, help our little community grow. I'm just giving you a little update what I've been doing over the past couple days, besides things like work and getting ready to move and all that stuff. In a prior video I talked about experimenting with podcasts, and I've been moving along on that, and I wanted to get you kind of up to date. It's an interesting process with podcasts, in that one of the things I like about it is that it's more portable. For me to do a 10-minute YouTube video takes about 1 GB of memory, and for those that don't know, a gigabyte is a 1,000 megabytes. So that's a lot. That's a lot of memory. In contrast, using a podcast format such as Wave, which is uncompressed, a 10-minute podcast is only about 100 megabytes, or about 1/10. And then if I go to an MP3, which you're all familiar with, which is not as high a quality, I can cut that back even more. So really what that means is podcasts are very portable. They could be emailed, they could be through an FTP site, they could be maintained on somebody's website without taking a whole horrendous amount of storage, and they can be passed around. So I kind of like podcasts for that aspect. However, one of the great things about podcasts is getting stuff out there, and I'm currently working with a service called Buzzsprout, and I'll give that link below. And they're very helpful in setting up a podcast, and my goal is to have my podcast be distributed to as many different services as possible. I am in the process of getting on Spotify, Stitcher, Google, iPhone, iTunes, and Alexa. And so it takes a little bit of process. What you do is you kind of get your podcast started, you create one episode, and then you apply to all these different services, and then they will review your podcast, and then hopefully you'll get approved, and then your podcast will be part of their distribution. So it's kind of interesting. Right now I've got 3 out of the 5, and I'm really just waiting on iTunes right now. Once iTunes says I'm approved and I'm on their list, then I'm going to start making more podcasts. So I haven't given up on the project. It's just that when you first go into the creation of your podcast channel, there's a little bit of hurry up and wait, and so that's where we are there. But I think really once I get the podcast set up and running, it's going to be rather interesting and kind of fun, I think, too, because it's a different technique than using video, and it's also, like I said, it's more portable. A lot of times people, they may be at work, and while they can't watch a video, they can put their headphones in and watch a podcast or listen to a podcast. And so hopefully we'll do it that way. And also too, like I said, it's a backup to the backup. I like doing these videos. I like putting information out there. I like putting out some stuff about history and the Constitution and stuff, and I don't get too much into the current topic stuff. Sometimes I may talk a little bit about world situation or whatever, but in general, I'm not a very controversial person, and probably most people look at my beard and say, oh, he's an old guy, who cares? But I'm trying to put some information out there to help people keep informed. And the idea, like I said earlier, is to get people to start thinking about stuff. Just because your buddy Joe or your buddy Susie says something doesn't necessarily mean it's true, because you don't know where they got their source from. So kind of use some of the things I put out there not as a definitive answer, but to help you springboard into other stuff. Do your research. There's so much out there now that you can get, And once you start looking into it, and I'm talking about free stuff, it's out there, it's ready to be had. And so, take care of that. But I always worry, one of the things I do kind of watch is I kind of watch how, some people are demonetized, some people are banned, some people are suspended, and really, like I said, I don't consider myself a controversial person, but really, I don't see any real guidelines on what is okay and what is not okay. It's a very nebulous kind of thing going on out there. And so, while in my heart and in my mind I say, yeah, I'm rather benign when it comes to stuff, but what's good today may not be good tomorrow, and so I want to keep being able to put out content. My intention is to stay on YouTube for as long as I can, hopefully forever. I don't, like I said, I don't plan on getting into some of that, divisive, incisive stuff, but who knows? But the podcast is a little bit different. When you're just doing voice, it kind of changes your thought. Here I'm watching myself on my iPhone, kind of making sure that my hands get up, or my hands get away from my face, or my hands get in front of my face. I worry about that. Whereas when I'm doing the podcast, it's just me and the microphone, and I don't worry about this other stuff. And it gives me a chance to think. I also tend to be a little more organized on the podcast. And so we'll see how that goes. But I'm planning on running a dual channel, YouTube and then podcasts on a couple different services to give people an opportunity, if they want to hear what I have to say, an opportunity for them to hear it. So that's where we're going now. To just give you an update, we're still kind of packing up our house, and we're moving stuff into a storage unit. We're getting ready to fix up the house a little bit so that we can get it ready to sell. And that in itself is kind of a chore. Luckily, we have time to spread out a little bit. It's not like we have to put the house on the market next week, so we have time to kind of work through things, and that's been a blessing by itself. And so we are moving and getting out there. Some of the things, getting out to our property is going to be so great, but boy, I just have a whole lot of work I got to do. Once I get out there, I got to start putting up fence, and then we got to start thinking about what we want to do with our property. I want to have some garden. I'm not a big gardener, but really what I want to grow are medicinal herbs. We talk a lot about preparedness, but when it comes time to get into the how do you take care of yourself when there's no more Walgreens or CVS or Rite Aid or whatever, what do you do when all that's gone? And there's a lot of people out there that have they have knowledge. So, oh yeah, you can use St. John's wort, or you can use whatever for this stuff. Well, that's fine, but what if you don't have it? And so I've been working, I've been taking some classes, I've been reading some books, and my goal is to get a smattering of medicinal plants that we can use to treat various things, in lieu of stuff you can buy at the health food store or stuff you can buy at the drugstore. So I think as preppers, as people that prepare, that we have to consider that too. How are we gonna, when something goes bad with our bodies, how are we gonna fix it when there's nobody that's gonna come knocking, or there's no hospital to go to? And so that's kind of some of the things I'm going. Things about the podcast, I wanted to put that out. Things about the, what I'm doing. I'm trying new ways to edit stuff, new pieces of software, new ways to podcast, and then in future episodes we'll talk more about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, and being able for us to gather information and then turn around and disseminate it back out through multiple channels, which I think is important. So that's all I got for you for now. More later on. Stay safe, stay secure. We'll see you.